Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today I'm joined by Dr. Walensky, Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Murthy to give you a thorough update on a busy week of activity fighting the pandemic across multiple fronts. You've heard our scientific and public health teams, led by Dr. Fauci and Dr. Walensky, talk in plain terms about the threat to ending the pandemic we face from more dangerous variants that emerge from COVID-19. Now today, with their help, I want to lay out our strategy to tackle these variants. When we arrived in January, we put together a 200-page plan on how we would tackle every element of the pandemic, from vaccinations to inequities, to school reopenings to testing. Part of any plan is tackling the things you can't fully prepare for, but which emerge as critical threats. All roads to defeating the pandemic go through the path of successfully and quickly vaccinating the country. To date, 125 million Americans have been vaccinated and millions more each day. But even as we accelerate our efforts to get shots in arms, more dangerous variants are growing, causing increases in cases with people without immunity. This increases the urgency for you to get vaccinated, but it also requires us to intensify our efforts to quickly test for and find the genetic sequence of the virus as it spreads. Now, we started in a hole. Despite having world-class researchers and dedicated state and local public health leaders, when we arrived, the U.S. was sequencing only a small fragment of what other countries were. This hampered our ability to find and react to these new variants. What we call surveillance, our ability to spot variants as they emerge and spread, is vital, particularly as we aim to get ahead of dangerous variants before they emerge, as they are in the Midwest right now. Today, we are announcing a $1.7 billion investment to bolster the ability of the CDC and state and local public health departments to monitor, track, and defeat emerging threats, whether it's COVID-19 variants today or other viruses in the future, through a process known as genomic sequencing. This significant investment, which is made possible due to the American Rescue Plan President Biden signed into law last month, is critical in our fight against the new and potentially dangerous variants of COVID-19. Right now, these variants account for nearly half of all COVID-19 cases in the United States, and we need more capacity in our public health system to identify and track these mutations. State and local public health departments are on the front lines of beating back the pandemic, but they need more capacity to detect these variants early on before dangerous outbreaks. This funding will enable CDC and states to do more genomic sequencing as we activate the nation's great research capabilities to detect variants earlier and increase our visibility into emerging threats. This investment will give public health officials the chance to react more quickly to prevent and stop the spread. Today's investment also builds on the major investments in testing and genomic sequencing that we made earlier this year. That includes $10 billion of American Rescue Plan funding to support COVID-19 testing in schools, another $2.5 billion to help state and local public health agencies increase testing capacity in underserved and high-risk communities, and nearly $200 million to begin to increase genomic sequencing capacity that this investment comes on top of. We're doing a number of other things to work with individual states that are experiencing a rise in cases, providing more intensive support to get more shots in arms more quickly, more personnel to support vaccination and other public health efforts, and more testing and therapeutics. Additional sequencing efforts will be a vital tool in our battle against COVID-19. I have one further announcement. Today, we're announcing another federally run mass vaccination site in Bessemer, Alabama, that will have the capacity to administer 7,000 shots per week. Altogether, by next week, we will have opened 37 mass vaccination sites in 26 states with a combined capacity of administering a total of 125,000 shots per day. We're doing everything we can to put this pandemic behind us, and we stand ready to support states. But before I turn it to Dr. Walensky, I want to reiterate the role all of us have to play. We need everyone to do their part. We need all Americans to take the steps we know work to stop COVID-19. So please, wear a mask, socially distance, and as needed, socially distance and get tested as needed, and also go get vaccinated. As of Monday, all adult Americans will be eligible. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Walensky.
Thank you and good morning. As per my usual, I'll begin with an overview of the data. Yesterday, CDC reported 73,622 cases of COVID-19. Our 7-day average is up to 69,500, nearly 70,000 new cases per day. I know case numbers may seem similar from day to day, but just 4 weeks ago, our 7-day average was only about 53,000 cases per day. In concert with the increase in cases, the 7-day average of emergency department visits, hospital admissions, and hospitalizations are all approximately 5 to 8% higher than they were in the prior 7-day period. And sadly, average daily deaths have increased for the 3rd day in a row to over 700 per day. We are also getting vaccines into arms as quickly and as equitably and safely as possible. I am proud of the progress we've made. More than 1/3 of the US population has received at least one dose, and more than 1/5 of the population is fully vaccinated. But we must continue to get many more people vaccinated. The increasing trends in cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are very concerning, and they threaten the progress we've already made. As I've discussed, some of these increases are as a result of relaxed prevention efforts in states across the country, such as relaxed mask mandates or loosened restrictions on indoor restaurant seating. Another reason for these increases is the continued spread of highly transmissible variants, more than 50 to 70% more transmissible, which makes the race to stop the transmission even more challenging and threatens to overwhelm our healthcare system again in parts of this country. CDC data show that the B.1.1.7 variant, the variant originally identified in the United Kingdom, represents 44% of the virus circulating during the week of March 27th. The prevalence of B.1.1.7 since that time is certainly higher, and we are expected to have new data soon. The emergence of variants underscores the critical need for rapid and ongoing genomic surveillance. CDC has been acting on multiple fronts to increase our sequencing efforts in the United States to detect variants of the virus that cause COVID-19, and recently began receiving sequence data from 7 additional large commercial laboratories. As Andy just announced, the administration is investing $1.7 billion from the American Rescue Plan in an effort to more effectively track emerging and circulating variants across the country and to better prepare the country for the next pandemic. This includes surveillance of breakthrough infections as well as more and more people get vaccinated. With this critical and substantial investment, CDC will fund the equipment, supplies, training, staffing, electronic infrastructure, partnerships, and innovation needed to build a robust national genomic sequencing effort. In addition, $300 million will establish 6 centers of excellence in genomic epidemiology. These centers of excellence will operate as partnerships between state health departments and academic institutions, and today's funding will fuel cutting-edge research into genomic epidemiology. In this work, we will build our public health capacity to respond not just to COVID-19, but to future concerning emerging threats to public health. Yesterday, I testified before a congressional subcommittee where I shared my commitment